Here we go.
Hello and welcome to Set Talks, the podcast that helps you navigate and connect with the Colorado film scene. I'm your host, Nick Fiorella. Today I'm joined by Stephanie Sunata, the acting director of Cine Fe, an organization dedicated to uplifting Colorado filmmakers and reshaping the local film industry into a more connected, diverse, and inclusive space. Cine Fe is about more than making movies. It's about building community, amplifying underrepresented voices, and pushing for a future where Colorado can fully realize its filmmaking potential. Today we'll dive into how Cine Fe supports creatives, why representation matters in our industry, and what the future of Colorado filmmaking might look like if we can get it right. Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. That introduction's putting a lot of pressure on the shoulders. Don't have all the answers, but I'm really excited to have these conversations.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I don't know. How's your week going? What have you been up to lately?
Yeah, week's been going good. Very busy, which is really great, I think, for folks in the industry as we're kind of afraid of what's going on in it. I'm very, very thankful to be this kind of good busy.
For sure. Before we get into Cine Fe, let's talk about you a little bit, if that's all right.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I would love to just, hear your background as far as, the bug maybe that you got to get into filmmaking. Did you go to school for it? And ultimately what led to, your job at Cine Fe or your role at Cine Fe?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm born and raised here in Colorado. So went to Monarch High School out in Superior, Louisville area, Boulder County. And I always knew I wanted to tell stories. So it started with the written word. It was creative writing. It was journalism. I was an editor on our high school paper. Went to undergrad here at Metro for journalism.
Nice.
And then I wanted to kind of continue that. And so I ended up going to grad school out in the Chicago area for journalism, went to Northwestern. And that is where I started to think about how I really loved long form storytelling. I also was always a hobby photographer and everything. And so picking up the camera was easy for me, and starting to see the audiovisual medium was just an easy jump for me. And so I got into documentary films and got my start at Cartemquin Films out in Chicago, if you know of them. They're known for Hoop Dreams, Minding the Gap. And so Gordon Quinn, one of the founders of Cartemquin, was kind of my mentor through it all. And the rest is kind of history. I'm currently just very fortunate enough to be able to work from home and do what we now call impact producing, which is really being able to use films as social and community engagement tools. So I think that's why I'm super excited to kind of step into this role at Cine Fe and again continue this work of using film and the art form of filmmaking for community building.
For sure. Was it just for college that you were out in Chicago, or you spent some time out here?
I spent some time out there after graduating as well. So
nice, yeah.
I got a lot of experience on, commercial sets, big budget Hollywood films, reality TV, and then of course a lot of documentaries.
That's awesome. And then you moved back home,
and then I moved back home, and you really can't beat the winters out here. So
I'm from Cleveland. I know.
Yep, there you go. That lake effect.
Yeah, totally. Not fun.
Yeah. So who wouldn't want to come back here in Colorado?
Well, hell yeah. Well, thank you for returning. It sounds like we could use you. You're perfect for this role. I'm excited.
Thank you.
To see what you guys do. Just to get into Cine Fe, and for those that don't know, can you share how Cine Fe started and ultimately what motivated its creation and, goals in general for the organization?
Yeah. So I wasn't around at the very early parts of Cine Fe, but they the early leadership were really noticing a gap and missing kind of a whole industry, right? Being from the Midwest and everything, I'm sure you also saw there was an industry, there was a community there.
That's why I started this podcast. It was because a lot of people, I think, get here and go, don't know where to go
Exactly.
to like find the community. And there are organizations like WIFMCO and Cine Fe and CFBA and stuff, but yeah, I don't think it's 100% obvious, or it feels a little siloed maybe.
Exactly, and you use a word that is used throughout this study that that team started and was, I believe it was going to be released in 2019 or 2020. It was a study of 2019, and then we all know what happened in 2020. So there was extra follow-up that needed to happen. But so I remember coming back in around 2019 is when I came back. But when the study came out, a lot of things like resonated. And through that, I think the leadership was like, we need to build this community. We also are noticing some pretty significant gaps or holes that we feel need to be filled. And so one of them that resonated with me when I first read this study was one that Colorado before the pandemic was outpaced from the growth of the film industry as a national level. Like the Colorado film industry here in Colorado was growing faster than the national average, which is awesome. It also, though, pointed out that a lot of the filmmakers said there wasn't as many opportunities.
Right.
And so they were making their own. There were a lot more freelancers, and there were a lot more people doing like contract work, making their own LLCs, making their own small businesses. Mm-hmm. As we know, that makes them more vulnerable, though, to things like a global pandemic, which is going to shut things down.
Sure.
And so I thought that was just a really interesting kind of perspective on, you know, how to really help our independent artists, because it really means that we don't have the big studios here. We don't have the big production companies. We don't have a lot of fiction and scripted productions even coming here. So how are artists surviving? And it makes them very vulnerable to that. And then the second part that really stuck out with me as well is when these things happen, it is going to most negatively affect the most vulnerable populations. And
Sure.
That's, you know, underrepresented, you know, groups like based on gender or race or, you know, socioeconomic standing. And so I really, really connected with kind of Cine Fe's mission and what predecessors, you know, such as like John Van Wyck, you know, had really created this community that I felt was very similar to what I felt in Chicago. And so just can't thank John enough. Going to give him a shout out. He's probably going to be embarrassed, but John, you're someone that was really, really, I think, set the stage for this, and why that I was, you know, really excited and hope to continue that legacy forward.
That's awesome. And how did you end up kind of falling into this role? Like, I mean, did you, yeah.
Yeah, I think just kind of following John along, I really, really admired how he was bringing things together, and he was bringing communities together, and he's such a good connector. And I think that is one of the things that, as you mentioned earlier, siloed, right? We hear that phrase or that word a lot when we hear about the Colorado film industry. A lot of people, even today, 6 years since the study, feel siloed.
Right.
And so just watching him doing these connections just on a one-on-one was great, but it takes like a lot of energy. So how can we scale that up? How can we, you know, do more things, make it more efficient? And so in talking with John, trying to expand some of the programming that Cine Fe offers, including we started the feedback labs, and we have the Cine Fe fellowship, and really trying to figure out, okay, how do those programs, how can we continue to replicate and scale those programs? And so I kind of just was like, John, whatever you need, let me help. And so when he was ready to kind of move on, that's how I was able, I guess I was already there. And so
Sure.
stepped into that role.
Cool. Well, I mean, like, as far as like Cine Fe, you know, it's very much about community building and stuff like that. Like, do people, is it just sign up for a membership, or is it more just like, is it a 501c?
501c3. Yep. So we are a nonprofit.
Okay.
And yeah, we've done the film study. So Cine Fe was, you know, and John definitely was kind of one of the boots on the ground, collecting the data and putting it together.
Yeah.
And making all of those recommendations. So if you haven't seen it, please, you know, read it and give us your feedback on what you think about that. Because I think that's how, Nick, you and I got connected is through this study. And
Yeah.
I think, just kind of getting involved as we're in this kind of transition period. We're trying to figure out a lot of things, as everybody is in this kind of weird, nebulous, tumultuous time that we're living in right now. But yes, please, at least you can sign up for our email, cinefe.org. And then we'll have some announcements on some of those events and programming that I kind of mentioned earlier.
Nice, yeah. And for, you can just Google Colorado Film Study and it will come up. Yeah, once I found that, I thought that was really fascinating. And the way it's laid out is interesting. I think I don't know, do you mind kind of walking through a little bit of how it's broken down? I feel like it's like silo infrastructure. There's a few kind of key elements to that film study.
There are, and so I don't want to speak for it because, again, I wasn't on the team and who built it out. So one of these days, I think John would just be a great guest on your show.
Okay.
But yeah, so from the findings and everything, there are some really exciting things that people, like everybody who I've talked to who has read the study has gotten something else different, but it has made them want to act.
Totally.
So that is actually the most exciting thing for me as somebody who, during my day job, I want people to act after they see a film, after they see a documentary. I want them to act and want to do something. So to have this study, which could be considered dry or too much data, like the fact that they're reading that and saying, wow, this is resonating with me and I need to act upon it, is really exciting.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, folks like, there's so many people, folks like Shauna, who is doing a lot of kind of this, really large scale organizing. But then there's other people who are doing little pop-ups. Like I've talked to filmmakers who are more experimental and they're trying to, rent out kind of theater spaces and like warehouses and think of different exhibition things. There's other people who are opening up their own studios and camera rental places out on West Colfax. There are people up in Fort Collins doing like these music and movie kind of, fireside chat and exhibition things up in like the hotel up there. So there are so many people doing so many things, and that's what I love about the Colorado industry, is that we're not confining ourselves to a certain way of doing things. Mm-hmm. People are making it happen, finding creative ways, exactly like you before we started this, talking about, hey, I'm just gonna like build these walls, get my wife to do set. We're doers out here. And I love that. I just wish that there were more ways that we could connect all of those people doing all of those really cool things together.
Yeah, totally. And like you mentioned with like Chicago, or in my case, Cleveland, it was like, there would be like a monthly networking event where it's like everybody from different media production companies and the film office would come out and give updates. And I know Shauna, which I'm going to have her on next to talk about those town halls and whatnot. So we'll do a deep dive into that. But definitely, I would encourage people to look out for those industry town halls that are going to be coming up. I think it's sometime in October, but
it's early October, I believe.
And the first one that they had, I thought was just so refreshing. Just getting everyone together, I thought was really cool. And then, identifying, the kind of pillars and the things that were identified in that film study. And I think, and she's very sharp. Love Shauna. She's very sweet and very, very sharp. She's kind of broken it down into like the pillars of what they're going to focus on and try to come up with action items to really, take the next steps from those film studies, from the film study, which I was super excited about. But, as far as like the siloed aspect, and you guys have programs and initiatives, you mentioned, what were the two that you mentioned before?
Yeah, so we have currently our feedback labs, which we're inviting local filmmakers to share works in progress and get feedback from other filmmakers, which has been a lot of fun. And so if you have any works or anything that you want to show, we have a few of those different kind of types and everything like that. And then we also have the Cine Fe Fellowship. So that would be where we're working with local filmmakers from underrepresented communities, and really to kind of highlight the diversity and the talent that we have here in the state, this work that is going on here right now. So regardless of whatever incentives happen, regardless of what festivals come here, people are in your backyard creating some really, really, really cool stuff. So
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much talent here, I've noticed.
there is so much talent here.
Which is, super interesting. It's just, people maybe are a little siloed. Like, I always hear about something that someone's doing, but it's like, I wish I would have known that up front. Maybe I could have, jumped on to help or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I think just kind of communication and whatnot. Well, as far as, the feedback, what was it again?
The feedback labs.
The feedback labs. So how would people, if they were going to submit to this, if you guys are moving forward with it?
Yeah, if you just want to go to our website and sign up for our newsletters and stay in contact, that's kind of the best way, or follow us on socials. So all the information, cinefe.org, is usually the best place to go. Like I said earlier, we're kind of in flux, as a lot of people are, but socials and our newsletter will probably be the best way to kind of keep updates as we have things to announce.
Okay, and I'll include all this in the description,
Perfect.
by the way, to make it easier for people. Diversity and inclusion is a big, obviously, focus for you guys. Just from your guys' perspective as an organization, why is representation such a core part of Cine Fe's work, and what progress do you see being made in that regard? Or challenges at the moment, because there's a lot of weird stuff going on. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that is just, we could have a whole series on this, so I will try to keep this to the hour. But I think that the first finding of the study was siloed. That was the very first one. But the second was, that representation. And so I think we are in this really unique kind of time where these discussions are happening, but I think we're not feeling or seeing a lot of as much action or progress as we would like. The study did show that the whole cross section of the demographics of filmmakers in Colorado are not representative of the general population. So in almost all underrepresented groups, filmmaking was underrepresented. So female identifying filmmakers underrepresented when you compare it to the general population in Colorado. Same thing with Hispanic and Latino populations, African American, Asian, indigenous, almost pretty much all across the board. Was that, and I think that is a problem. And again, if also these populations are the most vulnerable when crises strike, like the pandemic and other things that go on externally. So I think it's important, because even though there has been progress, made, it's still very important to have these spaces and recognize it and understand. I think we always talk about equality and equity, kind of how I see it, the difference between, if you have a short track, 200-meter racers, if you have them all start at the same position on the track, that's equality. But if you actually look at the physics of it, the people on the inside track are technically running a shorter distance than somebody who's on the outside track. So
and we talked about this, generational wealth, let's not all pretend all of a sudden it's fair.
Exactly.
I'm with you on that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's great, because it goes back. You can kind of see. I'm not an expert in this, so I don't want to talk, about that. But there are systematic things that have, folks have to face and that don't have that access. If you even look at technology, look at how expensive, when filmmaking first started as an art form, how expensive cameras and films were, and how much technical knowledge you had to have to work a camera. And so, everybody is complaining now about anybody can film anything, which, yes, we can have that debate as well, but also kind of putting that access into people's hands, kind of removing those barriers to entry, which is that you don't now need really a lot of education on how to work the equipment, and that it's not very expensive to upkeep and develop and even edit when you used to physically have to cut films.
Sure.
And so if you don't have that generational of institutional knowledge, of course you're going to have underrepresented voices and everything, even in a 21st century industry.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I think for me, that's the work that I want to continue doing with Cine Fe is, always having a space to say, you're welcomed here. All are welcome, but also especially seeing like we can have these conversations and we want to understand and learn kind of your entire being as an artist and, understand all of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anything, in particular that you would kind of call out from your perspective that it would be like that you've kind of faced firsthand potentially and, and that sort of thing that people should be aware of and that, get more conversation around it to change it.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think even just by asking those questions, asking people what their experiences personally are, because I also don't want to, say that I'm speaking for everybody, for every Asian American women, female identifying filmmaker. I don't want to do that as well, because we're going to all have varying perspectives and everything. Growing up in Boulder County, I'm sure, was a lot different than growing up in LA, San Francisco, Chicago, or Minidoka, Idaho. So
yeah, totally.
So I think just being open to those conversations and listening to people, I think is just a huge step as we, are able then to share, because we're storytellers, right? We also want to tell our own stories and be able to have conversations like you and I are having right now, I think is really valuable. And understanding like, oh, what do you as Stephanie see as the difference between equality and equity? Like those terms get thrown around a lot, and I think they have, very similar but could have different nuanced meanings and stuff. So please have those conversations with your fellow filmmakers. And
sure,
I'm also learning a lot more about filmmakers and accessibility in the art form, and so I'm trying to learn a lot more about that. Also trying to learn a little more about what's going on in rural areas, and because the study also did find most of the working and most of the study was done here in the Denver metro area, and that is not representative of everybody in all four corners of our state either. So
for sure.
Please just keep asking questions and having conversations.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, yeah, I mean, so just kind of getting into like programs and support, do you guys, and you mentioned a couple of the specific programs, but like programs, events, initiatives that you guys have coming up that people should be aware of. And yeah, I mean, like get involved in and have the conversation, so that everyone's voice is represented. And I feel like we're at such an early kind of stage of hopefully like a revolution of filmmakers in our state, so yeah, I mean, I would encourage everybody to be getting involved in this stuff, like that town hall and everything you guys are doing now, because the conversations and the foundations of this, of hopefully what we're going to see in the next 10 years are happening right now, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like we are still kind of planning out what our 2026 is going to look like.
Yeah.
But again, please, just kind of keep in contact and follow us on the socials and everything. Also, though, if you, just email me, I love having these conversations and I love hearing what people are doing. And so, I don't have all the answers. One of the findings in the study was also about kind of like online infrastructure and,
sure,
kind of databases and everything. And again, don't have the answer to that, but I feel like that is something that we could be close on. There's a really easy return on investment on that. So if you have any ideas or anything, I love talking big ideas, and let's try to find a solution together. So that's the main thing I can also offer, is that I really, really want to hear a lot of people's ideas and keep finding these conversations. And yeah, I think showing up to certain events, and it is a little difficult right now to find, okay, what is actually happening in my area, but it is possible. So as start a new, spam folder, Gmail or something, but make sure that you're at least getting them to some, inbox. So you can be like, oh, great. Okay. You know what? I'm not doing anything this weekend. I might put on, real pants and go outside and mingle, which is something that I do every once in a while. But it's good when I actually can get out of my home office and actually meet people. So
for sure. Well, yeah, I mean, and we've kind of touched on this, but like, from your perspective, what makes the Colorado film community, unique in comparison to Chicago or certainly LA or New York and whatnot?
The collaboration. I don't know how it was in Cleveland, but in here, if you were like, oh my gosh, I'm applying for this grant, can you help me out? They're like, oh yeah, I applied for it too, and this is how I answered. Like, oh my gosh, it very rarely happened in Chicago, and then the folks that I work with, like on the LA or the New York scenes, like, oh, you wouldn't even think to ask somebody to help you out with that. But I think that is why this is an exciting time, because there's a lot of people doing some really cool things, and they're willing to share that. They want to build Colorado industry that can, both produce really, really great work and have fun doing it. Like, wouldn't you love to have a production? I'm sure we've all been on those productions of those like really like verbally abusive, directors or something that's like, this is how we did it back in the 60s and this is how we're gonna do it.
Right.
And you're just a lowly PA and everything like that. So I'm really excited about the Colorado film industry because of the collaboration, and that we can all take our different experiences and see how other industries in other states are doing it, and kind of improve upon that. And
absolutely,
again, part of that is the huge focus on representation and equity in that we have a really chance. I don't want this thing to be completely built, but we're building it in the reflection of, some oppressive systems or anything like that. So again, please, if you're thinking about things, reach out to other people who might have different perspectives or voices than you. And let's make something really cool.
I'm with you. I that's what I've definitely found here is everyone's so nice and willing to help and is just excited, to get a project off the ground and whatnot. Whereas I feel like, and also like I was just telling you, I just did this short film, and it's like we filmed at this diner and we just walked in and said, hey, like, we would love to do this short film here. This place is so cool and perfect. And the manager was totally cool with it, which I feel like in LA or New York probably wouldn't be able to do that. Like I don't know, just, I agree. There is a yearning sense of community. And I think we're kind of at the grassroots of sort of organizing it in a good way to kind of move forward as a community, which I'm super excited to get involved with. And I'm kind of an outsider, because I'm from Cleveland.
You're here now, though. You're here now, though. You're putting your roots down. So I mean, that goes to you. Like, what do you feel like you want to bring or build here?
I mean, I definitely like doing this podcast, and this is kind of, I hoped it would be helpful for other people, because I talked to a lot of people that have moved here, and again, they're like, where is, I don't know where to go in terms of like finding other filmmakers and stuff. So I thought that this podcast would be helpful, and it's really my little investigation of the community here, and hopefully these are good informative talks for people to listen to and get information and know where to go and stuff. But I love making films. My goal would be to, be a narrative filmmaker here in Colorado and do that as my career. But we'll see if I can accomplish that.
Yeah. Well, let's check in 5 years, see where you're at on that.
Yeah, totally.
Where we're all at.
Right. Cool. Well, as far as, and I think you touched on this, but just to hit it again, for filmmakers or film lovers tuning in, what are some ways that they can support Cine Fe's mission? And we'll hit on the social channels one more time too.
Yeah. So again, just to support us, please just kind of follow us on socials and, sign up for newsletters. As a nonprofit, we also do take donations and kind of really thrive on that, especially in this changing landscape of how nonprofits and public media are getting funded and on all of that. But another way again is, yeah, please kind of reach out for any cool things. I'm still just really curious to know what people are doing, what work is happening, what stories are being told. And I think that's really the first step that I feel like I can take is, okay, great. As long as I know kind of what other people are doing and keep meeting and seeing new people. Yeah, go to the local film festivals, go to the local theaters. Yeah, and I think another thing is please just like talk to different artists too. Like look at the music scene, look at even kind of the fine arts and other performing arts that are happening in this state. I think that's also a really, really exciting thing that we have the potential to really do a lot of, cross-disciplinary work together, because that, there's some really, really cool bands doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
There's dance, there's muralists, there's sculptors.
That all have great stories to tell, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I was just telling you about my short film that I just did. It was like, I went to this improv studio on Broadway. It's called Chaos Bloom. And yeah, they do like a skit thing every month. And they do improv, kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyways? But I went to this skit thing and it was like, these are short films. And not only that, they like workshop them over time in front of an audience. So I was just sitting there going, oh my God, someone should just film this. It'd be great, and they were just, oh my God, such funny actors. So yeah, I mean, in terms of like making a film, there is so much talent here to work with. I think just
totally,
start networking and connecting with people. And it sounds like Cine Fe is a great way to network and get involved with more, creatives to put your project together. So yeah, I would encourage people to get involved with that program.
Yeah. I would hope we're a place where that can happen. That's the ultimate goal is, you'll see kind of in, our kind of mission statement is to be an incubator, right? Mm. So we want to be able, it's not that we have all the solutions, but you can come to us with those ideas. You can come to us with those problems. And then we will, as a community, try to think about it and, try to solve the problems together. 'Cause really, that's what I loved about what John Van Wyck had put down as kind of the foundation of it all, is that really the success of any one of our filmmakers is a success for the whole as Cine Fe and as the industry and, Colorado and all of that. So
yeah, totally.
We're going to take the world by storm. I'm waiting for the coast to look inward and be like, what is going on in Colorado? Like,
for sure.
They've stopped playing our game. They've stopped, applying for our grants, but they still show up and they're doing some really, really cool stuff. So
totally.
That's my long-term goal.
Cool. Well, just a last question to end on here, kind of talking about your guys' vision, if you could describe your dream vision for the Colorado film industry in one sentence, but it can be more than one sentence. Okay. What would that be? Not to put too much pressure on you, but yeah, what's success look like in 5 to 10 years for you?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to repeat that answer that I just said.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, my dream for the Colorado film industry, like as a whole, would be, the coasts and everybody is looking inward and we're like, what happened in Colorado? I thought it was just commercials and pot and ski videos, but they're doing some really, really cool stuff there, and they're doing it their own way, and they're happy. Like, I would love that. It's not that,
right,
I don't know how the grind was in Cleveland, but sometimes it's like, oh gosh, everybody's so miserable because they got to start as a PA and try to work up to an AD or an AP, and you're just like working terrible pay and terrible hours, and you're just like, oh, I got to go through this. Whereas I would love it if people are baffled by us on how happy and successful we are with our own metrics of success as well.
Sure. Which I have heard just by word of mouth from some of the filmmakers I've had on, where they've brought people in from LA or New York, and that they had a really great experience with the crew here, and everyone was super nice, and it sounded like everybody like had that kind of takeaway of like the feeling of the people here, which which I agree with. Everyone, like I said, has been super nice and willing to help, and everyone just wants to see this all be a success, which is really cool, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. But yeah, well, thank you, Stephanie, for coming on the show and doing this. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I will put all of the links to all this stuff in the description, and I will be following as well. And yeah, I'll be in touch. If you guys have anyone that you think would be good guests for the show, I would love to have them on to chat.
Yeah, exactly. We'll definitely be in contact. Like I said, I think it's about the first step is to let's just do these one-on-one interpersonal introductions and see where those ripples go from there. So
Yeah,
thank
totally.
you so much for having us and letting us talk about, Cine Fe and the work.
No worries. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Well, this is Set Talks, the podcast that helps you navigate and connect with the Colorado film scene. Thanks for tuning in.